Yes, exactly. So those are examples of cognates. I don't know any, unfortunately, between Vietnamese and English. Are there any? No?
Right, I've got an example to share.
Okay.
Do you remember the Vietnamese word for the first word step out? Step out. Yeah. In Vietnamese we say départ. Because that word is from French. That is a borrowed word.
Depart.
Yeah, départ. And in English we have another word that is depart.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So whenever I teach the word depart, I say word départ on the end of the student.
Perfect example. Exactly.
But I think that for old people like us, we know, but the young children, they don't know what they buy.
But when they say it, they know. Of course, they don't use it because it may become the passive language.
Okay.
Right? Long time ago, the people said it. But
So you don't use that word in Vietnamese
yes, the young
anymore.
people don't use it anymore.
No,
But anyway, when we say we understand.
rarely seen, rarely used.
Okay.
Because it was used when time it was influenced by French.
Right.
When we were colonized.
I was wondering about that actually because I've seen some signs and I recognize some words as French. So I was wondering, yeah.
Because
I think I saw moi today as like a sign of a store. So do you use that word moi? Moi? Me?
No.
No? Yeah. Me? Me?
For example, Vietnamese has radio.
Okay, exactly. That frequently happens with technology.
Yeah.
Frequently. What's your word for computer?
No, it's different.
Totally different. What's your word for internet?
I would say internet.
So that's a borrowed word, right? Borrowed words are slightly different than cognate. Cognate means it has the same root, but a borrowed word is the same. You just took it from that language and incorporated it into your language. So you borrowed the word from English into Vietnamese, so therefore you could recognize it, right? Okay. And extensive reading. Obviously that's very important for vocabulary acquisition. The more you read, the more words you know. So that's really important. A lot of people don't do extensive reading nowadays. So it's important to encourage people to do extensive reading. Let's see. Okay. So they talk about this concept of depth of processing. I've already talked about this a couple of times. When I said that students, the more involved they are in the learning, the more likely they are to remember it. So if you make them look it up in the dictionary, if you make them write a personal dictionary where they have to draw a picture and come up with an example sentence, the more invested they are in it, that means the more depth of processing they have. The more time they have to spend thinking about it at a deeper level.
I'm sorry, is this a strategy?
No, sorry, this is going back to the content from the book. Kind of though, I mean, we can use it as a strategy because we talked about the fact that you need to see a word many times in order to be able to remember it. So we as teachers, we need to use the strategy of exposing our students to the language or to the words multiple times, right? So strategy can be used two different ways. We have teaching strategies and we have learning strategies. So strategies that we use as a teacher might be different than the strategies that our students use to remember information. Like note-taking strategy, test-taking strategy, those are learning strategies, right? So this would be a teaching strategy. Okay, so one more idea that's similar to that is what they call the involvement load hypothesis. So load is, what have you described load? Workload.
Something heavy.
Something heavy.
The amount
That you take in, yeah, it's the amount of something, right? It sounds heavy. It has a connotation of heavy, doesn't it? Right? It has a feeling of heavy. So you can say I had a light workload, right? But normally load is a lot, right? So your involvement in the load or amount of vocabulary that you learn is going to help you to remember it. So it depends on your need. How much do you need to know that word? Is that word important to you or not? And according to these theorists, and I didn't put their name because their name wasn't really very important to me, so I put the names when I think that you should remember them, okay? When I want to focus on the hypothesis or the theory, then I just left the name aside, so you don't need to worry about it. But according to these theorists, they said that intrinsic motivation is stronger than extrinsic motivation. What's intrinsic motivation? Inside. Comes from inside, right? You want to. You do it because you want to. And extrinsic comes from outside. Those are prefixes, right? So we can look at the prefix. And so we know inside or outside. So according to them, if the motivation comes from outside, for example, your parents want you to study English, then your motivation is going to be less than if you want to study English, if you're interested in it. So if you're interested in the word, you'll remember it better than if your teacher wants you to remember the word for the test, right? The other idea with the load hypothesis, if you're involved with the word, is search. So if you have to search for the meaning of the word, if you have to think about it, if you have to use contextual guessing, if you have to really wonder what it means, then you're more involved in learning this vocabulary when you're searching for the content. Haven't you had that experience before where somebody gives you money and you don't take it seriously? But if you have to work really, really hard for your money, you're more careful with it, right? You don't just spend it and go out and buy a whole bunch of junk, right? But if somebody gives you some money, you think, oh, that's not mine, I'll go get a massage or whatever, right? So if you have to work hard, the more we have to work, the more involved we are, the more we'll remember. And then finally, evaluation. So if you have to think in your head, is this the right word for this context, for this situation? Is this the appropriate word to use? Is this polite form, or is this, does this have the meaning that I want? Does it have the correct connotation? So if you're very involved in evaluating the word, you're more likely to remember it. All right, so these are all factors that contribute to your recollection of vocabulary. And then these guys, this is important for you to know, take note of this. This vocabulary knowledge scale. So they have this sequence. Yeah, 5 steps. So the first one, you don't know the word. It's a new word. It's unfamiliar to you. The second one, it's familiar, but you don't know the meaning. Right? It's like you've seen it. Oh, I've seen that somewhere before. I recognize that. Right? And then you can translate it. So that means you have a better sense of the meaning. And then you can use it appropriately with the right grammar, the right form, in the right situation. And then you use it accurately. It's a little bit more precise than appropriate. Appropriate is okay. You're not going to offend anybody. People understand. But accurate is really precise. Right? Like you use it exactly because you wanted to. You didn't use another term. Sometimes what is not said is just as important as what is said. Right? So sometimes we don't know the choices that students make inside their mind. So they choose to use one word, but which word did they decide not to use? Maybe they know many words and they chose one for the situation. So they, if they made an accurate choice, then that's evidence of the fact that they know the vocabulary item very well. Okay. Did you get that down?
Yes.
So, I told you we were going to do something different today and we were going to do discussion, but I don't think we have time for it today because I spent most of the time going over that discussion for that CLA. We had to spend a lot of time doing that. And we need to have time for our presentations. So we'll take a 10-minute break, all right? Come back and we'll start our presentations at 9:30 on the dot, all right? And I'll give my feedback from the presentations yesterday, and then we'll start the 2 presentations today. And then after class, I want to meet with the 3 people. Okay, so the 2 people who present today.
Sorry. I'm presenting today, but...
You can't stay after?
Yeah, we have to move had to go to choir.
Oh, okay. Everybody has to go to choir? Can anybody stay? Can you stay? No, you gotta go too? You can stay? Yeah? Who's presenting today? You two? Yeah, okay. So you can stay and then, can you stay? Yeah? Okay. So we'll do those two then. So, yeah, we'll make it up the next day. Okay. All right, so see you in a little bit. We'll do our discussion tomorrow.